Hey, David, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Jay, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show because you have a lot of insights around consumer goods and inventory and raising money for that and creating profitability. There's going to be a lot of great ideas here that I think are going to be really beneficial to people. And so maybe starting off, it might be helpful for you to give folks a little bit of a context around where your expertise is and kind of what your focus is. So they might kind of go, hey, yeah, this sounds like a guy I'd like to listen to.
Yeah, so I'm head of growth for Kickfurther, and what we do is we work with consumer goods businesses to fund their production and inventory. And so my personal background is advertising and sales and marketing, and then I got into financial technology about 7 years ago. Went through the growth phase of an early stage startup, and then join the Kickfurther team. And so, what we offer is a financial technology solution to cash flow pinch that businesses face when they need to produce more and more inventory as they're growing fast. And with that, my expertise more recently over the past couple of years has become supply chain and distribution for those consumer goods products, and then how to finance the growth around those two concepts.
Cool. I think it's going to be really interesting because there's a lot of ways to fund a business initially, and I think there's probably a lot of confusion around the best path for people to take. So as you talk to companies who are trying to scale up quickly and kind of get things moving, especially those ones who have those tangible products where they may have to have inventory or production, what are some of the big struggles that you see that they have at the very early stages of just trying to get things moving as a company?
So the process of funding that growth, is generally a number of different components. So it's not just like somebody cuts you a big fat check and then you grow your business with that. You usually start with an idea. And when you have an idea, then you want to see if there's interest in that idea. And then, you generally, we work with companies that are either, funding their own production run out of their own pockets, or angels, or whoever wants to support them out of the gate. Or some people will go to like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, the traditional crowdfunding sites, and raise money based on, a video that they put together about a product that they're making. And that'll fund their first production run. And then if they're successful, that's generally where we come in after they've demonstrated that they can produce and sell something, and they want to sell more of it. And the more you demonstrate that there's a demand for your product, the more it costs you to order your next set of inventory, because it's higher quantity, higher dollar amount. And if you go to a bank or a traditional sorts of financing and you say, hey, I did this Kickstarter thing and now I need a couple $100,000 to go do my next production run, they're going to say, well, how many years of tax returns do you have, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, we just did this 6 months ago, right? So, it's challenging to go out and get people to believe in what you have and put out capital for that.
Yeah, so let's dissect that a little bit more, because I think a lot of people are probably familiar with Kickstarter. Indiegogo maybe not be as familiar, but it's very similar for anybody that knows what Kickstarter is. Kickstarter is probably the bigger brand name. The other one operates essentially the same. So help differentiate, like, I know you said you're kind of like, maybe they were already successful in Kickstarter. Now they're going to come to you for that next round, but differentiate yourself a little bit from that. Like, what are the big differences between Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and you guys? Help flesh that out for people so they understand a little more.
Traditional crowdfunding is to fund your first production run. So in most cases, it's a new business that is making something for the first time. And then in some cases, it's somebody who has an existing business that's doing well and they're introducing a new product. And it's their ability to fund that production run of the backers of that campaign. So they'll say, hey, we're making this thing, and then people will buy into 1 or 2 increments of that thing. And all that money is consolidated to produce those things. and then each person who bought in gets their 1 or 2 that they paid for. Whereas with Kickfurther, we don't work with these first production runs. We have a marketplace that we're operating where businesses are coming to produce inventory that they're then going to sell through their existing sales channels, whether that's Amazon or their Shopify website, or they're selling to Target or Walmart or Best Buy or whatever other channels. They need the money to produce that inventory to sell through those channels. And the money comes from the marketplace model, where we have a community of 10,000 users, and they're putting dollars into those deals with the expectation that they're going to receive dollars out. And so the business offers them a profit for their participation. So maybe somebody puts in $100 or $1,000 or $10,000 into a deal, and they'll have a percentage return once the business produces and then sells through that inventory to their existing buyers.
So what you're kind of doing then is on that second or further production runs, after they've already proven they can create a product and sell it, at least at some introductory level, you are kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, opening up a market for others to easily invest in those companies, essentially, and get a return. But are those companies they're not getting equity in the company, they're just getting a return off of their investment? How does that work? Like, are they giving away equity or not?
They're not giving away equity, okay. Which is great, because a lot of our clients do have equity investors, and that's in many cases a great component to your growth. But it can also be really expensive if the value of your company is growing fast. You don't necessarily want to give away 5 or 10% of your company ownership for the next production run, because next thing you know, you won't own any of your own company anymore. So in our case, our deals are constructed with a consignment agreement. So what we are doing is buying inventory for the business and then consigning it to them to sell on our behalf. And as they sell that inventory, that triggers the consignment, and then we invoice them for those sales. And what they pay is a consignment profit, which is comprised of our fee to use the platform and then the return that they're offering to the backers. And so let me just run you through like a typical deal. So let's say somebody is, let's say you have a company that's producing water bottles, and they're making 10,000 water bottles, and it costs them $10 each. That's a $100,000 deal. So what we would ask the company is, when do you need to pay your suppliers? And let's say their supplier needs to be paid that $100,000 in a few weeks. So we would construct a deal where the funds are available when they need to pay their supplier. That $100,000 will go to pay their manufacturer, whether that's in China or here in the US, and then the manufacturer will produce the inventory. Generally, that takes a few weeks to a month. And then if it's overseas, it's a month on the water. And so, 2 months later, that inventory is arriving at a warehouse, and then the business is going to be shipping it to, let's say, their buyers on their website, their Amazon customers, and maybe a portion of it is reserved for an order that Target placed with them. So now, as that inventory ships out and customers buy it, then they start receiving revenues back from that $100,000 that was spent months ago. And as those revenues come back in, that triggers the consignment, and then we invoice the business to pay back on it. So the backers will receive their paybacks as the business sells the inventory and then pays down what they owe.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm just looking at it on the website. For example, I'm looking at this new organics project that's been fully funded already. They wanted to raise like 50 grand. Looks like that's all completed now. And it kind of shows a co-op profit margin. So is that the estimated profit margin that the backer would get once it's all complete? Is that the idea behind that number? Correct.
So each profit that you see, that percentage, is reflective of the duration of that deal. So let's say it's a 6-month deal and it's a 9% profit. Then, if you want to translate that into something to compare deals to each other, what we do is we say, per month, that's 1.5%, or per year, that's 18%. So the idea is, you put in your $1,000, and then as the business is selling through their product, you start getting chunks of that back. And then once they sell through all of it, you're going to get your entire amount back plus that percentage profit. And as the payments are coming back in, you have the ability to redeploy into other deals. So we have, deals going live on the site every day or every couple of days. and they all have different durations, different raise amounts. I mean, they're all different. And what's cool is, as a user on the site, you can look at all these details, and you can even ask the business owner or CEO questions on a live deal, and then they'll reply usually within a couple hours with, interesting and informative answers to help you make a decision if you're going to participate.
Yeah, I want to come back to the backers part, but I want to focus on the people that actually have the products for a second. What is kind of we talked about somebody who's they've got a product, they've had a first round of production at least, they've started selling some, now they're starting to get into bigger production runs, they need some help. That's when they come to you. What is an ideal product? You seem to have a lot of diversity with regards to what those look like. I mean, what does that deal look like that y'all are going, hey, yeah, this is something that our backers would be interested in and willing to partake in? How do you make those decisions about what to put on the platform and what not? So when people are thinking, is my product a good fit for this? What would you say to them?
So, it's more about the ability to produce and sell than the product itself. I mean, we do have some restrictions. So because the inventory is the collateral in our deals, we don't want something that's perishable or requires temperature controlled storage or transportation. So, we can't do food that's going to go bad. We can do shelf stable food. We have a lot of energy bars and drinks and things like that. It also, because of the nature of the deal, it's a consignment agreement where the participants are actually buying inventory for the business. That means that it has to be legal for anybody over the age of 18 to buy in all 50 states. So we can't do regulated things like tobacco, alcohol, firearms, THC. We can do CBD, but not THC. But we look at, over 100-point checklist to make sure that a business is eligible. So we don't just allow anybody on the platform. They have to have, a solid supply chain, solid distribution capabilities, in addition to the regular metrics that, business credit, owner personal credit, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, super interesting. I've just never seen anything quite like this. So I think people will find it intriguing. What I'd love to dig into a little bit now is just thinking through, because you said you got a lot of background in doing some sales and marketing and things like that. And obviously you have a lot in this consumer brand space, or production space, which I really don't. Most everything I've ever done is digital stuff. Now we've done some work for some of our clients in those areas, but I'm curious for you, as you give counsel and advice, because I assume people want to pick your brain about this stuff, to people who are producing products, that they're looking for ways to get those to market and to get attention for their product and then ultimately sell it. What kind of advice do you give to those people? And maybe even people that maybe aren't a good fit for you yet, but that are working on those early stages of productions, and maybe what's some counsel that you could give them along the way that might be helpful?
I think, the best advice I can offer is to be conservative and be proactive in your planning. People are excited about the opportunity and how fast they can potentially make something and then sell through it. But supply chain's a tricky beast, particularly if you're going internationally. And, there's things that are outside of your control that, we're seeing now that can impact your supply chain. And so if you receive an order from a buyer and they say, can you deliver product on this date? And you say, yes, of course, right? Because you want the deal. And then you place an order with a supplier and something goes wrong. Maybe you get stuck at port, or maybe they push you back in their order and production because you're not as valuable to them as a higher dollar client. And then you miss your deadline to deliver to your buyer. You could potentially lose that deal, or you could incur some substantial late fees from the buyer where you're not going to make the profit that you anticipated you would make. And that goes for, funding as well. So if you have money in the bank to produce your inventory right now, think about what it's going to be when it's 10 times that. And imagine that could be 3 months from now. So understanding, what your cash flows are going to be in a month, in 2 months, in 6 months, right? And be prepared for that. Know what your options are. Talk to a lot of different people. There's a lot of solutions out there. And I think a combination of those solutions is the best solution. And in order for you to pick the best combination, you need to understand all the options.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think being conservative in those early times is really important for people, like you said, and just being realistic. I've been in business now for 21 years, and it's amazing to me how excited people get about an early idea, which I really like. But I also and I'm an optimistic guy, but I want to balance that with like a little bit of realism, because I think sometimes people could risk so much time and money on something that they haven't even tested the waters on yet. And I think, doing some trial runs, getting some tests done, because it's a good idea in our head doesn't mean somebody's going to actually buy it. And I think the other thing I see a lot, especially when it comes to products, but this is really true for anything, is people say, well, I've told 100 people about this and they all think it's a great idea and they all say that they would buy it. And I say, well, how many of them have given you money for it yet? Well, none yet, but I'm going to. And I said, okay, well, once you start getting people to give you money for it, that's when you know it's a great idea. And once you have a certain number of people who come visit your website and a certain percent buy and a certain percent don't, that's when you get to find out how good of an idea it is. And anything beyond that, people like telling somebody, oh, well, I think that's great. I just have found so often that has no relevance until somebody's willing to get their credit card out and actually make a purchase. I don't know if you found something similar.
Absolutely. I mean, particularly when you're asking people for money, you gotta prove to them. And we know that in the sense of raising capital, you have to demonstrate that there are results that your business has proven that what you're trying, the solution that you're trying to deliver solves a problem, and it solves a problem for people who want you to solve that problem. So that passion and enthusiasm and excitement is critical in the success. But at the same time, you need to be conservative and you need data to back what you're saying. And in some cases, that probably means partnering with people or bringing people onto your team that are going to provide that counterbalance for you. People who know the numbers, people who know different elements of growing a business, because there's so many things that go into it. Even if you know how to make your thing that you're going to sell, funding the business, marketing that product, branding. I mean, there is so many different expertise that go into that supply chain, and they're all completely different. And for me, I've been with Kickfurther 2.5 years now, and I would say, I've accumulated a wealth of knowledge, but there's so much more left to learn on all these topics.
Yeah, I think, what's always amazing to me is how much money people will spend on certain aspects of the business, like whether it's a physical product, how much money they spent and time they spent to actually produce that product, but then how little money that they're willing to spend or even thought they needed to spend in order to market that product, create a message around that product, expose that product to other people and get attention for it. The same's true for brick and mortar businesses, I feel like, too. They'll spend an enormous amount of money on a building. They'll spend, $10,000 on a new sign on the exterior of the building. And then they're like, wait, our marketing campaign is going to cost us how much? Because they're just not prepared to know how much it costs to actually get attention. And they've only planned up until the point of having that brick and mortar business, or up until the point of having that product in their hands. And that's really only the first half of the puzzle. Because just because you produced a product and you think it's a good idea, how do you now get it in front of people? And thankfully there are, tools out there like Kickstarter, like you said, but even with Kickstarter, I mean, the best Kickstarter campaigns usually have incredible videos that go along with them. Well, it turns out you can shoot a video with your iPhone, or you can have a professional video produced, and those are very different things, and they have great copy written around them, and they're very persuasive, and they have good artwork behind them. And like all of those things take time and money in addition to producing the actual product.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, in our first few years of our business, we didn't do that much marketing per se. There was a lot of growth that happened organically. Businesses found out about us through, our professional network, and backers were joining the site organically as well when they heard from people that they could support these deals, because it's such a cool concept where you can, look at a website and participate in a deal like this and ask the founder and CEO questions and then make money on this. So we had this amazing growth that happened pretty organically. And then, I joined the team after we had this kind of proof of concept. Now we need to put our foot on the gas 2.5 years ago. And we have grown immensely since then. But we brought on a lot of resources that have helped us do that. And I don't claim to be an expert in marketing by any means, but my colleague Graham, who's our head of marketing, is a digital marketing expert. And, we have some lead gen solutions. We use a CRM tool, which helps us organize everything. And, at the same time, we're trying to balance out two sides of a marketplace. So you bring in a lot of companies, and then the dollars to fund those companies needs to grow as well, right? So you have these two sides that have to sort of stay in equilibrium as they're both rising. So it's a really fun and exciting challenge. But I think the core of what we're talking about here is having the right resources to solve those problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we think about the types of campaigns that you guys fund, and then I want to switch kind of over to the backers. Like, what does this look like from an investment standpoint? Who's an ideal fit for that market? What kind of risks do they have? Let's talk about that a little bit. But before I do, like, what is the typical size of an investment that a company is trying to get? Like, how many dollars usually is somebody trying to get as they work with you guys?
Average deal size is about 100K. But we're not trying to put any particular number on a business. It's really, how much is your production run? What are you producing? How many units of that? What do they cost per unit? And that gets you to a total dollar amount. And that's the deal. And the same with the duration of the deal. We don't want to say, you need to pay this back in 3 months or 6 months. We say, how long does it take you from when you pay your supplier until you get paid by your buyers, right? And that's the duration of the deal, because we want to address that cash flow pinch and not put a business in a position to have to make payments when they haven't received the revenues from those sales yet. So each deal is customized to fit the projections of the business in terms of how long it's going to take them to make and then sell that same inventory.
Cool. So let's think about the backer a little bit, or talk about the backer, I should say. Obviously, somebody can come on here, they can create an account, it looks like, and what are are there qualifications for somebody to be a backer? Like, what does that look like? And then what is kind of the minimum investment that somebody would need to make in order, to be a part of the platform? And even, is there a maximum investment? Like, can they only take up a certain amount of the run? Or let's say if a company wanted 100 grand, somebody had 100 grand they want to give them, can they do the whole thing? What does that look like as far as the backer inside your platform?
Yeah, so, as I described, the consignment agreement is the structure of our deals. One of the great benefits to that is that anybody can participate in a consignment. So we've made this opportunity available to anybody over the age of 18 in the US, and they can actually buy in with a credit card, which is really cool. So we have a pretty large audience that participates in deals with credit cards, earns points as they profit, and you get an extra month of float depending on when your payment is due, right? So it's a really neat way for anybody to kind of dip their toes in the water of earning profits with their money rather than just putting it into a checking account. It makes this type of activity more accessible to a larger population. And you can actually buy into some deals for as little as $20. So maybe your return on that deal is only going to be a couple bucks. But it's fun nonetheless. You put 20 bucks into 100 deals and you got yourself $2,000. And maybe you do that, once a week for a year. And then it's just, the people that we send these emails to, everybody who's subscribed to receive new deal notifications, they are really into it. I mean, before this whole COVID thing happened, we were funding deals in minutes. So everybody that I knew that was a regular participant on the site would be at their computer ready for deals to launch just so they could get into them. One of our users was on a cross-country road trip, and he was actually another podcast that we were on. And he said he was pulling over every day and making sure that he had signal so that he could buy into these deals. And that's so cool for me to hear. And, obviously everybody's seeing impacts from what's going on now. So deals, rather than taking minutes to fund, take hours or days to fund. But it's amazing that we can still operate this marketplace. And it just adjusts based on buyer appetite and, how much they want to put in and what they want to earn on it. So businesses can increase the rate that they're offering and, make a more appealing looking deal to these backers, and they can address concerns of, how long is it going to take me to produce? Are my goods that are coming from, Italy or China going to be impacted at all by the shutdowns? What am I doing to address that? How am I selling? am I selling online? Is my warehouse still shipping, or am I selling in stores, or are those stores shut down and I can't sell at all, right? So these are all considerations that we're taking in right now to determine, what products are going to work in this environment, and how do the timelines get impacted, and how do the offers that the businesses make get impacted.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I was just, playing around with it literally as you're kind of talking through it, and literally took me as you were explaining it, I created a new account and added my verifications, and now have a verified account. If I want to just plug my credit card number in right now, I could contribute to one of the live campaigns that are going on, which is pretty cool. One little word of personal caution for anybody out there that is thinking about investing with credit cards. The one caveat I would tell you to be very careful with is if you do not actually have the cash to back that up, do not be foolish with your money, because I do not want to encourage anybody out there to go put $1,000 into an investment deal, especially if it's not going to return for 6 months or 8 months or 12 months, or who knows in this environment, if you don't have the cash to also back that up. So be careful out there, people, with stuff like that. But it was very easy to set up the account, and I think it's just a super interesting way for people to, I don't know, kind of feel like they're a part of another business, because you can kind of do a little business case study. You can, on the website, you kind of see what's going on with other businesses, and maybe learn a little bit about your own business too, because I feel like if I was producing a product, I could go look through some of these other campaigns of people who are a little bit farther down the path from me and go, all right, well, based on what they're seeing, I can see some details about their business that I might not otherwise be able to see because they're trying to get funding. So I can log in and I can see details about their business, which is really helpful if I was trying to start my own business too. So there's some good product research capabilities for people who may be interested in doing their own thing in different types of markets, which I find really interesting as well. Let's transition a little bit because eventually we'll run out of time. I find this stuff super interesting, and I think it's kind of a unique way for people to both invest. Yeah, go ahead.
If I could just make one more point, you led me to the thought that you have quite a wealth of knowledge in growing a business, and you've taken a particular interest in this platform. And as you can imagine, a lot of the users share that with you. So, when you're going out for funding and you go to a bank or some sort of traditional source of financing as a business owner, you're interacting with your salesperson or your account manager, and that's it, right? Well, here, when you have eyes on it from Jay and, 9,999 other people who are like Jay, you may actually develop some relationships beyond just the money, right? So we have a number of relationships that have begun, I'll have a user email me and say, hey, I'm an expert in this field and I know a bunch of resources for manufacturing and distribution. Can you connect me to the business owner? And then we make the introduction, and we've actually had a lot of relationships begin on Kickfurther that then materialize off platform and help that business owner grow. So you have a lot of people that are just doing it for fun, but a lot of people that have expertise in one of the areas that this business might need help in, and can actually build relationships from.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, I think that's something for any business that's listening to this, business owner or team members. Relationships are everything. The relationships that we form in business are the true catalysts for exponential growth. Connecting with the right person at the right time can make all the difference in the world between, staying where you are and multiplying by 5 over the next year. It's been amazing to me how both just happenstance, luck, whatever you want to call it, running into the right people has great value, but also nurturing and developing relationships is just enormous. And sometimes coming into communities like this, the way you talk about it, it's kind of like the community of people who are engaged both as backers, especially because they're coming back again and again for different deals, and even businesses who are involved with helping get their inventory covered. It's like this community, and community, especially now in the midst of all the stuff we're going through with this coronavirus season, is just so valuable in business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So let's transition a little bit and talk about one topic I always talk about on this show because it's important to me, and it's the section called work-life balance. Now, I don't love the word work-life balance in general, and it means something completely different to everybody. On one side of the fence, you've got the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world who want to work 100 hours a day, and that's fine. And on other ends of the world, I can't think of another example, but somebody that'll be on the opposite spectrum who thinks if you don't have a 2-hour yoga session and a nap every day, then you're not doing something right. So I'm curious on that spectrum of, Gary V to 2-hour yoga and naps in the afternoon. Where are you on that spectrum as far as work-life balance, and what does that even mean to you in this season of business?
I'll tell you, I'm somewhere in a happy medium place that I've established as that happy medium place. I'll tell you, I moved from Boston to Boulder because my lifestyle is really important to me. There's no question about working at a startup in growth. You have to work really hard, and I'm on most of the time, whether it's late at night or early in the morning. If somebody calls me or emails me, I'm 100% available to them. But what I like to do and kind of what I live for outside of work is the outdoors. So I spend a lot of time going to the mountains, hiking, mountain biking, skiing in the wintertime, camping. Disconnecting from technology is, I believe, really healthy and a good way to, kind of just be yourself and be with people you care about. And so that is, the focus of my work balance is having the ability to work hard. And then when I'm not working, to spend time outdoors with my family and with my friends.
Absolutely. What I love about that is it's just this, you talked about kind of the idea of finding what works for you. And I think that's really important for people. I don't think there's a right answer to this question. I think that some people work, 12 plus hour days and they're perfectly happy with that. And they like their life that way. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people want to work 6-7 days a week. That's fine. That's up to you. But finding your own path along the way and really stepping back and asking the question, like, is this what I want to do? And I think sometimes too, it's a season of life. Like sometimes when you're in growth mode, maybe over the next year or two, I'm going to work a lot more hours than I might plan to work 3 years from now. But I think always checking that has a lot of value.
Yeah, I think it's important to always make time for yourself, even when I'm on a work business trip and I am doing those 12-hour days. Like, it's important for me to, stretch and do some push-ups and get a workout in and go have a healthy meal. That's what keeps me energetic and keeps me focused. But it's, it's different for everybody.
Yeah. So 2 last things. One, I'd love to hear any kind of parting advice as you talk to other people about building a business that lasts. And then the second is where people can find you and your company online. So number one, parting advice, when you're talking to other entrepreneurs, business owners, people who have an idea or a product that they're excited about and they want to build a business that lasts, what would you say to them to help them kind of continue to grow in business?
My advice is be prepared. It's, plan for what you're going to need 6 months from now or a year from now. Understand what problems you're going to face. And if you're not going to be able to solve those, who you're going to bring in to solve those problems. And when you're looking to fund your growth, understand the entire environment and what your different types of solutions are for different needs. Talk to people. It's not a waste of time to have a 30-minute call with a salesperson. They're maybe selling you on something, but at the same time, you can gather a lot of good information from that person. And yeah, I mean, we would love to talk to you at Kickfurther, and we believe that we're potentially a part of that solution for you. So anybody can reach me at my email, david@kickfurther.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, David Koifman. And I'm sure Jay will have some contact information for after this.
Yep, I'll put a link in the show notes so everybody can get access to your website. It's kickfurther.com if you want to check it out. I'm on there right now. There's actually a live deal at the moment, plus a few more coming up. So if that's something you're interested in checking out as a backer, you can go take a look and, do your own research. I have not used this platform myself before, fair warning. So, check it out and make your decisions about what you want to do. Always be careful about investing in general. And those of you who have products out there that need some help, reach out to David. Even if Kickfurther is not a good fit for you, he might be able to give you some ideas and knowledge about supply chain and cash flow that you haven't thought of before. And I'm sure he's happy to give some quick counsel to see if you're a good fit, number one, for Kickfurther, and if not, help point you in the right direction. So, David, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Jay. It was great chatting with you.
Hey, I hope this video has helped you with some tips and ideas to build a business that lasts. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss out on the next videos that we roll out. And more importantly, for some awesome free resources, head over to our website at buildingabusinessthatlasts.com. You can get a free copy of my book there where I tell you how I have built an agency that's grown year over year for the last 20 years in a row. So go grab that, buildingabusinessthatlasts.com, and make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks. We'll see you soon.